Good evening once more, and welcome to MTV Community Forum, wherever you are. Greetings, hello. I'm your host, Byron Campbell, and of course, co-host Chris Diali. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Byron, and good evening to all our listeners and viewers. We thank you for giving us time again tonight to share some information with you.
Chris, and after our talk show, we have our special guest, Collin Francis, and he's the president of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and we want to explore as a key voice for over 300 businesses in Grenada. So we really look forward to this discussion to find out what is the state of businesses,
Absolutely.
how we're going forward.
Absolutely.
Chris, I want to start off with talk on traffic because our Prime Minister has been talking about it. The last statement I heard him, because we have a traffic problem in Grenada, Chris. There are congestions most times in the south. It's not limited to the south, but we know about double parking on our road and the amount of vehicles. The latest count is 68,000 vehicles, a lot for a population of 120,000 people. So Chris, what he's been saying is this, that the government is considering reducing the age of imports, vehicles. Now it's 10 years. So this is likely to move to 5 years. Additionally, there are concessions given on used AVs, that is electric vehicles and other type of vehicles of that nature. Hybrid. But what he's saying is that is likely to end, and the concessions would be directed more to newer vehicles. Yes, the fact that these hybrids, these electric vehicles, when they use, the battery issues is a problem. So this is an approach. But I believe, Chris, the banks are prepared for this, in that this may not necessarily reduce on the volume, on the amount of vehicles coming in. Because what the banks are considering, and I know this, and let me add this too. One financial institution that I inquired about, 40% of the portfolio has to do with vehicles financing. So that's probably the largest sector of their business. So they're not going to give this up. So guess what? What they're going to do and what they're moving to is to, they're willing to give you 8 years or 10 years on the repayment plan for your vehicle. So it means that you can still buy a new vehicle. So the volume is not necessarily going to go down. So that is not, when you do that, it's not really a solution for our traffic and vehicular problem, Chris.
Agreed. The issue of moving the age of the vehicles from 10 to 5 or whatever is to deal with quality.
Yeah.
And trash.
Yeah.
These countries will export their trash to us and Africa and so on. And we have a problem with garbage. So that is one of the things that you will normally look to put in as a measure to reduce that incidence. And because we see a lot of vehicles after they buy them and so on, park up on the side of the road.
It's not going to reduce the volume of vehicles coming.
It's not going to reduce the volumes. If the financial institutions are offering more reasonable grounds to purchase a vehicle, even though it's new, and there's more new ones, because the last shipment of vehicles that came in over 300, 90% were new, not used. So, I mean, we have guys in the country that have huge used business, but even those guys who are doing used vehicles are bringing in new ones as well. So the issue of congestion on the streets and the volume of vehicles, I don't think the government has addressed that. And the other issue, of course, is what is happening with the parking on the roads. And Byron, I've said on programs before that there are low-hanging fruits that we could deal with and the traffic department could implement that would help with the congestion. So, for example, when some people reach on a crossing, they want to cross right away. Now, if you have a traffic light on a crossing, as we have by Food Fair, they have to wait until the light turn. But if you go down further by CKs, as they reach, you want to cross. So it constantly interrupts the flow of traffic. All the wardens have to do is say, guys, hold on. Stay on the side for a while. When I get 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 people, you could cross. But don't cross as soon as you reach. So there are low-hanging fruits that we could implement. The patrolling of our roads by motorcycle policemen is another issue. You have major roads like Granans that you can't afford to stop for long. And you need to be moving. And then we're going to implement, Carnival coming up, where I was going to have new traffic rules. Then you have the UK SIF project that Nawasa is engaging on for more storage and the roads.
Yeah.
So it's more drama and more delays is expected when you go into that part of Grenada, that you need more and more officers on the road to control the traffic. So, I mean, I just don't understand how we dealing with the traffic in this country, but when there's certain little things that we could do to improve it.
Low-hanging fruits economy. Easily done.
Easily done.
And it's getting worse. The traffic, the parking on the roads everywhere, all over the country. It's a hindrance. Chris, we just had cricket in the stadium. I didn't see you.
No.
You boycotted it. I don't know why. But anyway, it was exciting the first 2 days anyway. But
I saw the first 2 days. I was on television watching it.
Okay, I was there. But it was exciting. But the turnout was poor. Grenada got excellent coverage in terms of international coverage. That's a big deal. I mean,
it's the biggest advantage.
Grenada was showcased, so it's worth it from that point of view.
Yeah.
But Australia sealed the series as West Indies collapse again at Queen's Park. But I heard the head coach, Darren Sammy, says there are going to be changes. But wasn't I also, Chris, want to compliment the Chinese, the government of Grenada, for the excellent refurbishment of the stadium. It looked good. It felt good.
Yeah,
good job.
The key to that, Byron, and I will probably support. I haven't been there since the refurbishment.
Yeah.
But just as when we had the first one, I was brand new for World Cup.
Yeah.
It was really lovely.
Yeah.
But what is the maintenance? What is the preventative maintenance
Chris,
we plan to do?
how you call the monitors, the big screens, new screens, they look lovely, they're beautiful. Our field was, you saw it on television, it looked international standard. So
but
kudos to the organizers.
If we don't have maintenance, remember that stadium is right by the sea.
Yeah.
So if we don't have a solid preventative maintenance, we're going back in the same situation we were 5-7 years ago. So as much as I wasn't there, and you say I abandoned the cricket, I didn't abandon the cricket. I was watching on television, but I just feel it hard to pay my money and go there and watch my side collapse.
But it was a great atmosphere the first 2 days.
I'm not doubting that. It's just that I have a difficulty in watching my side collapse. But there's a positive on the West Indies. I thought the bowling attack with the 4 fast bowlers, they have a good, talented fast bowling attack. The issue now is the batting.
Right, and when they bring in the lights, Chris, we'll be able to go there and enjoy cricket at night. The 20 over limited.
The nights haven't been put up as yet?
No, not yet. Yeah, but I understand that this is coming.
I want to ask you about something, Byron, and that is project implementation. I've been looking at this thing across the country, and I hear the government talk about it doing a lot of implementation, but to me, the figure still seems to be low in the 50s and 60s or less. What is your take?
Chris, we have, I call it a project implementation deficit, meaning that most of our projects are running behind. And this is not limited to Grenada, I could tell you that. But in our case, we saw when there was a change of government, there was a high criticism by the incoming administration to the outgoing administration about the state of projects, without analyzing the situation. And I thought that setting up the Ministry for Implementation, that's not transformative. That's not, because that's not how it works.
But there's a further comment, I don't know if you're hearing that most of the construction or works happening is happening in St. David's and Grand Anse. A lot of the other constituencies are being ignored in their projects as well.
That's true too, Chris. But I just want to finish that point. You see, we have to spend time. What the government should be doing is building capacity for project implementation. If you set up a Ministry of Implementation and Mobilization, that's not going to really help. That's not really going to.
Well, remember I said it was to get rid of the bog down in paperwork.
You see, because projects, particularly international funded projects, World Bank, Caribbean Development Bank, a lot of these projects, there are systems and standards, and where a lot of the bottleneck lies is in procurement. It's a specialized area, and if we don't build capacity, if we're not training people to do this, it's not a situation where the minister goes on the scenes and said, okay, that's not how it works, So it's unfortunate that, but let me answer your question here. Yes, Chris, what we're seeing from social, whether it's on television or social media, we seem to be seeing most of the activities, projects related, whether it's the road, drains, everything is concentrated in the south. I've concluded that I think that the south by itself, in terms of economic activities, is significantly more than the rest of the island. You know, one could argue that this is our tourism belt, and therefore that's the justification for focus on the south.
We probably need to get Minister Andy Williams inside here to have a discussion on this project.
But I'm not convinced that this setup, this ministerial arrangement, is really the solution, and that's helping.
No, I agree with you. Capacity is a big issue.
Yeah, capacity.
Whether it's human resource or equipment.
And if you don't have see sometimes the way they set it up, because they have one of the things they did, for example, the threshold with a direct
procurement was dropped.
Was 15,000 and move it to 100,000. So it means that, you know, so the oversight, the project management aspect is not there. So this is why you're hearing a lot.
They moved from 100,000 to 15,000.
No, they moved from 15,000 to 100,000. That means that you don't need competitive bidding
right, up to 100,000. Yeah, okay.
Exactly. Right. It was 15, but you had a significant jump. So, so if you don't build the capacity, we're not going to have the results. So it's a circle.
I want to go to Sargassum because we have been inundated on our eastern and western shores. Yeah. The eastern shores is new for the attack of Sargassum on the eastern shores. Yeah. You are a man that's swimming every day in
Chris,
the
I worry about this, about the Sargassum, because you know what's coming? You remember earlier in the year what happened in Wester Hall, where the Sargassum came into the bay and it sank
for
Judy Bay, and it destroyed the ecosystem there. We're going to have more of this. So I think it's piecemeal. I don't see the bigger picture.
But regionally, is there any effort regionally?
Chris, I was doing my own investigation, and I seen in the United States there are systems where they catch the sargassum before it comes ashore. You see, because once it comes ashore, it mixes with the sand, and the difficulty, it gets heavy. You're moving away a lot of your sand, so you're creating beach erosion.
I think in one of those countries they have booms that are set up for oil booms when you have an oil spill.
So
to stop it.
You know, it's worth it to invest $1 million in one of those systems. You know, when you look at the tourism product, and we were lucky this week. Most of the a businessman down there told me, who was operating there, he said most of the sargassum was removed based on the tide, not anybody moving it. So we were fortunate. You know,
for Granans in particular.
Granans in particular. So Chris, it is something that we have to pay attention to.
When you think about sargassum, what's happening, over the years it has increased in volume and frequency. So I think it has to be a policy directive from the government to attack it in a very structured way.
This year the volume of sargassum in this region, is over 300% compared to the previous year. So we have and I'm not convinced that it's suitable for agricultural purpose, given the toxicity of it. I'm not convinced. But
we need to get a regional initiative on that. That is a serious thing. If we base our economies on tourism, it has serious effect on the tourism product. So,
absolutely.
You know, it's one of those things.
Chris, the oath of allegiance debate continues, the pro and cons. We spoke about it last week, but it's heating up a lot more. People are against it. But Chris, on this matter, is a straightforward matter for me. If the rules, if the Constitution allows you to change it, change it.
I see no issues with it at all.
Straight up.
Changing it from the King and the Queen to the state for the oath of allegiance and the oath of office, I have no difficulty with that at all. And I don't think there's a real legal
I thought I'll get a debate with you that you would be opposed to it.
No, I am one of those that believe that we must have some identity of our own.
Yes.
You know, and if it doesn't require constitutional change, which it appears not to need, then a simple majority in Parliament can have a change. And it's the form that's changing, the form of the wordings. You know, instead of pledging allegiance to a king or a queen, you're pledging it to your state.
To the state of Grenada.
I see no difficulty in moving to that. Yeah, moving to that.
Absolutely. To say that, well, the government doesn't have a mandate, they didn't campaign on that, it's rubbish. You know, it's like they don't know everything they're going to do before coming into office. This is something that I supported. I support
moving. Why we need to have a mandate? I don't.
Well, meaning that...
No, I understand what mandate means. I'm just saying if the government see the need to move there, it's being discussed openly in society. I don't see... what is the detrimental thing of making a change to the state?
Exactly.
That's the question. Is it detrimental for Parliament to go by majority vote and say we're changing this?
And it's just the oath of allegiance. We're still under the monarchy. We still have our Governor General.
And you still have to do the oath.
Absolutely. Chris,
so anyway.
That's all the time we have, Chris, on this matter. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back with the President of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Collin Francis. Stay with us.
Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and allied laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for life and allied laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
Let's get in gear as the Spice Mass Corporation starts the semis weekend. The road to the crown. Weekend kicks off with the Brian Griffith Groovy Soca Semis. Thursday, 24th July, 8 p.m. Then the Trevor Friday Power Soca Semis. Friday, July 25th, also at 8 p.m. And for the Calypso lovers, the Melody Puppeted Calypso Semis. Sunday, 27th July at 5 p.m. All going down at Progress Park in St. Andrew. Admission only $40 for each show. Get your tickets now online at goodeffect.com and all SMC authorized outlets. Semis weekend. Groovy Thursday the 24th. Power Soca Friday the 25th and Calypso Sunday July 27th. Progress Park. It's mad.
Welcome back, viewers. As we indicated just before we went on a break, that our guest this evening is none other than the President of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Mr. Collin Francis is the current CEO of SOL, GM of SOL. That means he specializes in energy, the area of energy, and has been in the Chamber for many years. So he's well qualified to be where he is. So this evening we're going to talk economy and a number of things with him and what the Chamber is doing for our country and the need for the Chamber. So Collin, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Chris. Byron, thank you, and good evening to your viewers. Happy to be here.
So the first thing I want to fire at you is, one of the values of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce is that we forget as a nation that, and as a private sector, how important it is to advocate on issues that affect the private sector. And I know businesses may say, oh, the chamber dues may be high and so on, but if you were to put a cost on advocacy, they won't be able to pay. That's what we just call in the U.S. lobbying your senators and your politicians to see things your way and the benefit of whatever the private sector wants to the country in long-term benefits. What is your take on our importance to the private sector?
So we often refer to the chamber as a quiet giant. A lot of what you see that comes out in the front is taken many hours, a lot of research, a lot of consultation. Yeah. And that's really where medium and small size businesses have the power. That's where you have a voice. And that's where, in a very tangible way, you can let your thoughts, you can have your feedback actively pursued through advocacy and lobbying. And instead of each individual company doing it on their own and looking for resources to advocate and lobby on their behalf. And just the cost of that, compared to the cost of joining the chamber, you'll find that it's probably the best investment you'll make in business. The ROI is significant.
I agreed. I mean, as a past president, I want to say I was a past president.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you would know.
in terms of the training, because training for our private sector in this environment with digitization, the issues that we have in with people breaching systems, we have AI and all of that coming up. Where is the chamber in terms of preparing the private sector for all these changes that is coming forward?
The chamber is well ahead. Not necessarily where we want to be. There's still room for us to do better. But the chamber has, in recent times, gone through several projects aimed at building capacity. And not necessarily as far as AI and digitization as yet. We're getting there. But we've done things like training on developing business plans. We found that to be a gap. Several times we have small businesses who come and they want to access funding from banks and so forth, and they need a business plan. So we've helped build capacity for that, training around customer service, training around simple things as defensive driving. Just areas to make your business sustainable. On the digital side, we've collaborated. Knowing internally we too don't have the resources, but we've collaborated. We were heavily involved with the Information Communication Technology Week that took place, and even there we had students, we had the public, we had key stakeholders collaborating and getting into several innovative seminars, and I think the students actually developed their own internet service provider network at that session. So those are ways where we can lean on our partners, our regional partners, and get our membership to derive that benefit even though we don't have the capacity in-house.
Years ago, and I'm not sure if the chamber is still doing it based on what I know, we used to have a thing called JA, Junior Achievements.
Junior Achievers, yeah.
Where we were training young people to become young entrepreneurs and putting them through, school children in particular, secondary school children, and putting them through the rigors of starting a business, running the business, and shutting the business down. Is the chamber still considering this project, or do we have a offshoot of that still in operation?
I think you're going to see an offshoot of that. I don't know that JA is around as it's been in our time. I've benefited from JA in school, and you've seen it as well. You see what benefits are derived from it. But we probably need to take a look at it, and I know there's been discussions around it on how we can have some, whether it's a hybrid version or maybe a newer, modern, developed version of JA that our students can participate in.
Again, another form of training.
Another form
targeting
of training.
Our young people.
That's correct.
To get them business mind sorted. Before I hand you over to Byron, my last question to you for the time being is on the state of the economy. The chamber represents the major private sector in the country, apart from the Hotel Association. And from where you sit as a president now, what do you think is the major issues in the economy that our private sector has concern with?
So let's take a look at the membership of the chamber. In the intro, I think Byron mentioned that we have about between 300 to 400 members. When we take a look at the membership, the broader umbrella, paying and non-paying members, we're somewhere around 2,000, right? And we consult with our members all the time, and those are, businesses from minibus operators to hotels to larger businesses, banks, and so forth. And we get a sense from our membership that the economy is doing fairly well. When you take a look at the numbers, you see it. There was 3.7% growth in 2024. It's estimated to be just slightly above that in 2025. Public debt is coming down. Tourism and construction seem to have rebounded quite well post-burial. And those create opportunities. Those create transactions in the economy. But our members are equally concerned about climate change and the impact on tourism and agriculture, the main drivers of GDP in Grenada. right? So those are, and in your earlier conversation, you mentioned sargassum. Again, a huge impact on tourism, right? So those are areas we have to start taking a look at to either get our businesses, our private sector members ready as a country, because some of them are out of our control and they could be devastating to economies. We're seeing longer droughts, rainier days, and just unpredictable weather throughout. We saw what just happened recently in Texas, right, with the floods coming through and over 100 people, unfortunately, losing their lives. And we're not susceptible to those.
We have had our share.
We've had just last year. We did. So those are concerns that we have from the private sector side. Climate change, what's happening there, and just making sure when there's investment coming into Grenada that our private sector members, in particular small businesses, small medium businesses, can participate in that investment, because that's the backbone of our economy.
I hand you over to Byron to take you
Collin,
to agriculture and climate change.
But first, I want to look at the business climate and the ease of doing business. Before, there used to be this formal report, the ease of doing business, and Grenada was not showing very well there. But recently I saw an independent report which says that Grenada has fallen behind in digital business services, and we still have bureaucratic and bureaucratic efficiency. That's still an issue for us. But what, in your mind, you would say are the biggest hurdles to doing business in Grenada right now? Is it regulations, taxation? Is it energy cost, or access to skilled labor? Which ones are the real hurdles in going forward there for businesses?
It's a mix, depending on who you speak to, right? So in businesses, as a matter of fact, construction, there's a huge labor crunch there. You hear contractors complaining all the time they can't find good labor. Then you speak to the mechanics or just ordinary users. We spoke about of EVs earlier on. Where's that capacity for persons to actually repair the mechanics for electric vehicles, right? So again, I think skilled labor and building capacity in certain areas, that's one area I think that inhibits business growth in the country. Another area for sure is when we look at digitization and the ease of doing business and how easy it is to, one, set up an account, move funds, even pay for goods outside of Grenada, and some of the hurdles that we have in the financial sector that really make a business go through hoops before they can actually set up and get capital coming into the country. Those are other areas that we need to take a look at. And I know Caribbean governments have come together and they've tried, they're lobbying, but a lot of it actually stands outside on what the financial regulations are from European countries, American countries. You don't want to be blacklisted to make it seem as if you're trying some sort of encouragement of money laundering and so forth. And so we understand those challenges, we get that. But there must be a way, and the Chamber is advocating for this, there must be ways where we can pull our international stakeholders and say, hey, come take a look at what's going on here. Come see the opportunity. Come see how we can have not just a surviving community, we can have a thriving community if some of those unjustified barriers are removed.
I think just recently the ECCB announced today, I was hearing that, trying to make the opening of accounts easier, right, and to remove some of the regulation that's prohibitive that makes customers run through hoops.
Of course, you're in the energy sector. Is energy a deterrent for a potential investor in Grenada?
Energy, in terms of what
Cost.
kind of energy? Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a deterrent.
Or are we going more into,
persons look at cost of energy, and as soon as you think of cost of energy, you think of, okay, how much do I pay to turn the lights on and have the AC running? A lot of the cost in there is actually their cost on the international market, right? And that's what we need to bear in mind. This isn't arbitrarily the government or a private sector company saying we need to charge X and walk away and milk any community. That's not the case. Those prices a lot of the time change, and you see them on your bill. They go up, they go down, depending on.
So is the high taxation on energy at the government a deterrent in your view? They should be, yeah.
So taxation would be on retail, so at the pump.
Yeah.
And you would see that the current government kept it. I think it's $3.50 per gallon. Prior to that, it was $5.50. During COVID, it dropped, and the current government took the decision to keep it at that level instead of going back to the $5.50. So, again, there are trade-offs with all of this.
We and you probably know this, and Chris, you mentioned
an associated question with that. Sorry, before you go. How do you see the establishment of PV systems helping with the cost of energy to reduce it? Because if you have a PV system, whether it's off-grid or totally off-grid, do you see that as a factor that can help with the reduction of cost? I personally believe that government needs to put into law or into the regulation that no new house must be built unless they have a solar system. That's one. The PV system probably is more negotiable, but they see the financial institutions now offering financing to get people to go there. Do you see that? At the
time of construction.
Yes. Yeah. So is that something you think as an energy that is going to make a change or a disruption?
That's a very good question and a very complex answer. Naturally, yes, it would drive the cost of energy down for the homeowner because you're now pulling in solar to meet some of your power demands. Depending on the legislation, and we've seen this in several different countries, there's a mix. You can have a case where
Barbados is a good example.
Barbados is a good example, yep, with the battery storage issue, where you now have an overload, right, of solar power coming in, has to go through the grid, and
so because our grids need to upgrade.
That's correct. And then you need to also bear in mind, from the utility side, and I'm not here to speak about the utility, I'm sure they can do a fair job of doing that on their own. Remember, the utility also has legacy assets that they have to keep maintaining, right? Because should a hurricane, God forbid, come through and you lose all of your solar panels on your roof, you're now depending back on fossil fuels to get energy back in. So you also want the utility to keep maintaining at least some sort of equipment being maintained.
So providing some level of redundancy.
Correct.
In times of
so it's a delicate balance you need to walk. We saw sometime earlier this year, I think it was in Spain, what happened, and there was a shutdown completely, and a lot of that is the balance between alternate power generation and core power generation. There must be a perfect mix, and it's a delicate line to walk, and I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah, Colin. Of course, the private sector is represented in the Senate. Yeah, you have a senator there. But are you satisfied with the level of consultation, or rather, tell me what is the level of consultation you have with the private sector and the government, notwithstanding you have a representation in the Senate. What is it like right now, and is it at the level that you think it would work or it's working?
So our dear friend here, Chris, was the former senator for representing the private sector in the Senate. Yeah. Now we have Senator Salim Rahman, who's also a member of the chamber, has done a phenomenal job. The consultation between the private sector and the government, I think, is with any relationship, there could be room for improvement. But I think, to be fair, the private sector, in particular the chamber, is consulted on every single major issue. Sometimes it may not be with enough forewarning, and that's where we have room for improvement. But we've consulted with the government on many bills that go through. We've had the NIS bill, for instance. There's the Labor Code one. There are areas, even on the change of the allegiance. We had consultation with
Dr. Francis.
Yeah. And so there is consultation taking place, and I think we actually have a voice. The government listens, and that could be that.
Follow-up question to this, before this government, NNP government had the social compact in place, the social grouping.
Yeah.
this government has not seen the need to have this. Do you believe that disbanding of that facility in the sense of interaction with government, with the NGO group, with labor, private sector, and so on, do you see that as something you think they should reconsider? Because that gives you a door to understand how the government is thinking strategically now and down the road.
It could be something that we look at in terms of reconsidering, but perhaps, and I'm not sure the reason for it being disbanded by the government, right? But I think what's happening now is more individual consultation with all of the bodies that formed that collective.
Well, we had a young lady from the social grouping here last week.
Yes, week before.
And she said that there's very little consultation happening across the social services organization. So that's interesting. That is an area of concern.
From the chamber standpoint, we think that collaboration is best.
Bilateral,
bilateral. Absolutely. With all stakeholders and different perspectives is also can only reap good rewards for the government.
We have to take a short break now. Viewers, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Laboratories, providing quality care and expertise. Fit for life and allied laboratories. See our in-house doctors and our pharmacies. Get expert care and quality tests. When it comes to your health, you deserve the best. Fit for life and allied laboratories. We're taking care of Grenada.
On Wednesday, August 13th, it's Carnival Encore, the ultimate cool down at the Grenada National Stadium. The cool down village opens at 6 p.m. Showtime 7 p.m. It's full stage frenzy with massive performances from Cass.
No sweetness, she weakness, so she
Voice.
But I'm a junkie, the people play,
and many more. Tier 1 Chill Zone tickets are just $125. Upgrade to the White Oasis Premium Village for $350. Or take it all the way with access to the exclusive Carnival Cabana Club. Email sunshinepromoeventsgd@gmail.com for more info. Carnival Encore.
I don't know about you, but I come here to fetch, come to play a man.
The vibes don't end until we say so. Wednesday, August 13th, National Stadium. Get your tickets now from GoToFed.com. Brought to you by Sunshine Promotions.
Collin Francis, President of the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Youth unemployment, Collins, hovers around 30%, so that's high. How can the chamber be more active, be an active partner, so to speak, in solving youth unemployment? A business offering apprenticeship or training initiatives, chamber or otherwise? Are you aware of this? Yes, to alleviate this situation.
So that's a good question. We've actually been lobbying our members to start looking at youth in particular and start seeing how we can integrate youth into the private sector, whether it's for internship or just for training. And that's something that I think you're going to see roll out over the summer in particular. And this idea came about not just because of we know what the state of youth unemployment is in Grenada, but also for youth with special needs who we believe can be just good contributors to the economy and economically viable citizens as anyone else. And so they have a part to play in as well, because they're about, I think, our workforce is made up somewhere around 10 to 11% of persons with disabilities, and sometimes they're just cast aside. So we want to integrate them into that model, and we want our membership start taking a look at whether it's training or when there are positions open to integrate them into the business. And yeah.
The whole question of, Chris, you're asking something?
No. I said that's an excellent move.
The whole question of agribusiness and manufacturing, and let me throw in food security. We import 60% of our food. 60% of Grenada food is imported. It's too much. That's a dangerous trend. Is there anything that GCIC can do or to promote agro-processing as a way of reducing this food import bill?
So you're touching on one of our nerves right now, because far too often we see the raw material being exported and the finished product being imported at 4, 5, 6 times the cost of the raw material. And then we complain about our import bill. With that though, we know there are challenges. We know we actively have to look for a market for those persons who want to get into agro-processing. And we also want to collaborate with regional stakeholders. Are we going to sell to our neighbors, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Martinique, Trinidad in the south? We need to have that sort of collaboration. And what has the Chamber been doing? The Chamber has been participating in several trade shows highlighting Grenadian goods. We've done one in Guyana, Trinidad. We went as far as Cuba, as a matter of fact, just really exhibiting Grenadian manufactured goods. And the next part of that is to do just what you're questioning on. How do we broaden the reach of our agricultural sector? And not just that, but how do we also incentivize farmers or persons who have land to get into the business? Because for far too often, there's been a stigma around farming. You know, if you're a farmer, you work the land, you pour, you this. That stigma, unfortunately, is still exists in some areas. And we need to change that periphery. We need to ensure that there is a sustainable model where someone can get into agriculture. If we're talking about diversifying our economy, someone can get into agriculture, someone can have a viable and sustainable business and employ people in the agricultural sector and treat it as a business model.
I wanted to throw a related question to you on that. Because I'm of the view that we need to change the concept. You know, we have the Chinese coming to us with trade shows and trade people from various cities in China. We have a Flexing Bank trade thing coming up later on this month. But what we never seem to understand is that we don't have capacity. So, for example, we have a thing like Moses Essence that have been on the block for a long time. High quality essence. Right? But Moses Essence can do a 20-foot container essence every month. So why don't we change the concept? Why doesn't the concept move from, I have my trademarks on Moses Essence, I have it set up, so you can't just take my thing and make it. But if I form a partnership with a company in India to do the same essence, under the chemical composition and so on. And you have 1 billion people. I could sell one bottle of essence for $1 and I'm making plenty money in Grenada. So I'm moving the business in Grenada from $1 million business to probably a $10 or $50 million business by just forming these partnerships. Shouldn't we change the concept? Because we can't export containers.
No, just
to those markets. We just don't have the capacity. So why not form partnerships with these countries?
No, and that's a good point. And that's somewhere that the Chamber can take a look at and see how we can go beyond our borders in a very sensible way and one that is pragmatic, right? And that's a good one, Chris.
Yeah, we have a lot of nutmeg. We have a lot of good products that is unique to us.
And I'm going back to Colin to a previous question I raised about consultation with the government, and if, for example, in August, so next month, the government starts its process of budget consultation 2026. I mean, what would you see as the priority recommendations to make, given all that we have said? What is likely to be the priority recommendations you're going to make to the government in setting the 2026 budget agenda? What are the priorities here for you?
That's a loaded question.
I know.
You need to consult.
I think one, absolutely, consultation is key. Consultation with the private sector and with other stakeholders is key. And consultation, especially on the budget, has been done in the past with the chamber, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a novel
it's not
thing. The areas for focus, I think there's a lot of focus right now around construction and infrastructure and so forth. I think a harder look needs to be taken at employment, ensuring that inflation stays where it is, or goes even further downward. And I think the government's going to have to grapple with its tax collection mechanism, and that's been spoken about for a while. And those are ways that the private sector could assist the government with ideas.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the government has been moving to digitize a lot of its tax collection, and they have made reasonable success with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the licensing and all of that, personal income tax and so on, even land tax and so on. So I think, I mean, the chambers, I would suggest one of the things we have to do is to see how we could widen that net to get almost everything digitized, so that you could stay in your home, whether in England or in Grenada or elsewhere, where people, the diaspora, own land and so on, and just pay.
That's correct.
Without having to come in.
Yeah.
For tax collection mechanism, that's what I was alluding to. It's broadening the net.
Yeah.
Because we're going to see, I think, a shortfall in revenue. CBI revenue is dropping, or has dropped, and so it'll be interesting to see how the government's going to go about.
Chris, you hear that? Dropping.
No, I ain't worrying about it. The other thing I want to try to, from a chamber's perspective, is the issue of how could we incorporate the use of AI into our government services, first of all, and private sector services, or service companies in the private sector, to make us more efficient. Because I think one of the areas we have a problem in Grenada is productivity and efficiency. Our workers, unfortunately, don't want to work as the way they ought to. So we have articulated from this program that bring in foreigners from within the region that understand our culture and our language. And let us see, but at the same time, how do we use AI to interact with our workforce to increase efficiencies? Is the chamber having conversations around that kind of thing?
We've not started having conversations, but it's on our radar because we know the efficiencies that AI can bring into the workplace. And I mean, let's take a look at just the public sector. Take a look at some of the utilities, the water company, for instance, Wasan and Grand Lake. Just predicting weather patterns alone, there are efficiencies there, right?
That's right.
And even we spoke of the oil and gas industry earlier on. It's being used there for that. Logistics.
Yeah.
When do you get a tanker in? When's the best time? What's the tide going to be? And just putting that data in and allowing AI to predict different models for you, that helps because it means we have less downtime. And downtime when you have a tanker costs you a lot of money. Right, and it's the same thing that the government can do here. Everything from whether it's the licensing and registration of vehicles, how we interact with the public sector, the different offices we go to. There are ways that we can employ and we can advocate.
So would the chamber suggest for the 2026 budget that government invest $5 million to develop these concepts?
I think it would be a smart investment.
Okay.
Back on youth, what message would you give youth, young people who are operating outside, they feel there's no opportunities for them, they're outside of the formal sector, financing sector? What message you give to them?
Persistence always wins. Don't give up. There are times you may feel despondent, you may feel let down, you may feel that communities have failed you. You may feel that your family sometimes that they failed you. If you have a dream, work towards it because this is the best time to be alive, despite everything else going on around us. We have the tools.
Alive and living in Grenada. I had to add that part. I apologize.
The other thing is, we spoke earlier on, I think informally, that you have the Tourism Association, the Hotel and Tourism Association. They're independent from the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce. But we recognize there that in I know 2023, Chris, that tourism provide, I think, 40% of our GDP, so huge. But the sectors I'm talking about, and we're moving more into a service-based enterprise post-COVID anyway, but small hotels, restaurant, transport service, are they recovering and innovating? And can they be represented under the Chamber of Industry and Commerce? Because they're not strictly tourism, but they're in the service sector. Are they renovating? Are they innovating, in your view?
So they are welcome to be members of the Chamber. We have some of them on board.
Yeah.
And we help them with building capacity and training, everything from, actually they're the one, some of those who benefited from the customer service trainings that we've done, and the defensive driving training.
Okay.
So, and those are, again, smart areas where we can build the capacity at very minimal cost for them. So they don't have to take up that capital to get a certified trainer in to pay. That's being done.
I want to put something on your radar. Last week we had a gentleman here, tuk-tuk. You know what is a tuk-tuk?
No. You'll have to tell me what that is.
A tuk-tuk is a rickshaw, basically, like what you see in India and Asia and so on. So it's a tricycle.
Yeah, so I know the tuk-tuk is.
Right, you know it's a tuk-tuk.
Yeah.
This gentleman have introduced the concept to Grenada of the tuk-tuk.
Yes.
Right? But here he is facing a thing with the RGPF. Now, it's a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Right? Try motorcycle. And you have passengers in the back too, or whatever. He has a hurdle where they're ticketing him because his riders, his people who utilize the tuk-tuk, had to have an A license because it's a motorbike, A license. But the government is saying that through the RGPF that he carrying passengers, so he has to operate like a busman. Right, so he has to have a C-class license too, as well. Now, the gentleman business is about to close down because they're ticketing him every time he moves his rickshaw because he have contracts with tourism organizations because he has limited it to tours, right? Personalized tours, 2-3 people in the rickshaw. The issue to me and what I want to put on the Chamber's radar, how could we intervene to get the government to make an adjustment to the regulations for licenses or something else that could assist? Because this gentleman is about to close down his business and go somewhere else.
Yeah. No, and so we could intercede on his behalf, we could advocate, and again, it's just being practical.
Yes.
It shouldn't be rocket science. We travel all over the world and we see tuk-tuks, as you call them, and they're a thriving business. As a matter of fact, they're quite expensive to get on. In some cases, just because of the tour nature of it as well.
Because you know, a bus driver is a rotary thing.
Yeah.
And an A-class license is a handlebar thing. It's two different mechanisms.
It doesn't have a steering wheel.
Yeah.
Those are some of the ways where we let, legislation make us be inefficient.
Correct.
And we ought to correct it. And I think, the government will have a listening ear. If the Chamber is advocating for that and we see the benefits of it to the sector.
We must be able to get a walk around.
No, absolutely.
We're bright enough.
Yeah.
I want to go to the Chambers. What do you see as the Chamber strategic vision for the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's creating an environment where we have business-friendly legislation, creating an environment where communities are thriving, because we know when communities thrive, businesses also thrive, and ensuring that Grenada gets to a point where the business sector is more or less self-sufficient and is a far bigger contributor overall to community projects and to the livelihood of ordinary Grenadians.
I want to add one thing.
Go ahead, Chris.
Nimbleness.
Yeah.
Our businesses need to, because we have a lot of disruptors coming. AI is going to be a major disruptor. We had disruption in Airbnb, we had disruption in transport with, how you call it, transport thing now, with the app where you could go and,
Hail up.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do we get our businesses to be more nimble? I think has to be a strategic focus of the Chamber down the road, because the digitization and all that is going to come with that is going to disrupt the workforce as well. So it's something probably.
And I'm going back to the advocacy aspect of the Chamber, because that is part of your role. And my question is, how can you be a more dynamic advocate, not just for the traditional big coat business, but for small rural enterprises and community-based entrepreneurs? How can you be? Is that part of your mandate? Is this something the chamber can do?
It is. So we are collaborating with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses, and in particular small ones. And we invite everyone from the young person who has a barber shop or a hair salon, a minibus driver. They're all welcome to be members of the chamber, and we will advocate for them.
Is it expensive to be
No,
a
it's not.
member?
It's not.
No, we have tiers.
Yeah.
Tiers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's based on your number of employees, right?
Your cost is tiered.
So we will advocate equally for
Okay.
the minibus driver compared to the large business. We've started having town halls. We've also started having some in Carriacou because traditionally a lot of Carriacou businesses were not represented in the chamber, and we've started welcoming them in and having that sort of consultation, letting them know what the benefits are, what benefits they derive from being a member of the chamber, because especially post-burial there are a lot of needs there on taxes and duty-free and so forth, right? So yeah, we welcome anyone who's into commerce into the chamber, and we would advocate for you equally.
Chris, you have the final say.
No, I think, Colin, and you ended it on a nice note of the advocacy. Really and truly, a small and medium-sized business cannot pay for advocacy.
Yeah.
They must come to an organization like the chamber who has a wider view
Precisely,
of the business community and the climate in the country. And when we go to the government to advocate on something like taxes or where they may need relief, we can bring to the table to the government that if we need a tax reduce here, where you could probably make it up somewhere else. The small and medium man may not have that overview. So that advocacy that we do is the most valuable thing that the chambers offers to all its businesses, no matter the level. And that is something that we have to continue to ensure that the chamber remains efficient with its research officers and so on, so that we can bring that value to our
Closing
membership.
comments, Colin?
No, except to say thank you for being here. The chamber will continue doing its work and continue fulfilling its mandate. We are on the side of communities and businesses in the private sector, and having that balance and making sure we advocate for what's right for our businesses. And so I'm happy
And
to
by
be here.
extension, the country.
Well,
They
when the businesses survive and thrive, the country wins.
That's right.
Because
So-
the only thing I forgot here in my dialogue was Carnival is, of course, soon, and this is a big opportunity for a lot of small businesses, vendors and others, to make a money, so to speak. But thank you for joining us, and
Thank you.
we appreciate it very
Happy to
much.
be here. Thank you
Viewers,
very much.
that's all the time we have at
Pleasure.
MTV Community Forum. We want to thank our technical staff and all, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.